pages 156 to 157. 169 of her own volition, as Cassini added. See the North American Review for May, 1904, p. 683. 170 according to Art. 12. These 5 million taels were to be returned to the Chinese government as soon as the line was in running order. It will be remembered that the government was responsible for the contribution of an equal amount of money to the capital of the Russo-Chinese Bank. It is probable that the money has been transferred from the company to the bank, so as to make it pay 2 bills, the one after the other. It has already been reported that the money was originally paid out of the Russo-French loan of 1,895. If this report is true, the whole arrangement may be characterized as extremely clever on the part of Russia. CFP 84, Note 4, above. 171 confirmed by the Tsar on December 4/16, presented to the ruling Senate on December 8/20, and finally published in the Bulletins de Lois on December 11/23, 1896. See an English translation of their text in the British Parliamentary Papers, Russia, No. 1, 1898, and China, No. 1, 1900, pages 57 to 61, a Japanese translation in Takushijoyaku, pages 495 to 500. At the further extension of the railway by the agreement of March 27, 1898, supplementary statutes were promulgated on February 5, 1899. See Ibid, pages 516 to 520. 172 Articles 10 to 16. 173 page 32, above. 174 The Chinese minister to St. Petersburg at that time was appointed the first president. 175 Articles 18 to 27, Agreement, Article 1. 176 Article 8. Compare Art. 5 of the agreement, which contains merely the former part of this arrangement, i.e., the protection of the railway and its appurtenances by the Chinese government. 177 The agreement, Art. 12, the statutes, Art. 2 178. The agreement, Art. 10, the statutes, Art. 3 179. CP 150, Note 1, below. 180 Herr von Richthofen, now the Foreign Minister of Germany, and the greatest authority on Chinese geology, wrote an article in the Colonial Zeitung of January 6, 1898, describing the mineral resources of the province, and concluding that the power which possessed Kiaochao would control the coal supply in northern Chinese waters. See China, No. 1, 1898, p. 21. The same authority had shown years ago the advantageous position of Kiaochao. It will also be remembered that during the Chinese-Japanese War, war vessels of several powers were temporarily anchored here, so that the superb position of the port was familiar to everyone. 181 Considering that there has never been any disagreement existing between China and Germany, and that the German government came to the assistance of China in securing the evacuation of the Liaodong Peninsula by the Japanese, for which she has never been recompensed, and further, as England, France, and Russia have taken maritime ports in the east, and as Germany has no port as a rendezvous for her vessels and for a coaling station, her position is not equal to the other great powers. The Tsungli Yaman's Memorial to the Throne, translated in Mr. Denby's dispatch of March 9, 1898, U.S. 55th Congress, 3D Session, House Documents, Volume I, p. 189. The same sentiment may have prompted the Tsungli Yaman to make the offers stated in the text. 182 China, number 1, 1898, number 25. 183 U.S. 55th Congress, 3D Session, House Documents, Volume IP 189. 184 China, number 1, 1899, p. 67. 185 Takushijoyaku, p. 355. 186 China, number 1, 1898, number 3. 187 Ibid 188. Ibid, number 2. Cf. House Documents, OPCIT, pages 187 to 189, a memorial of the Yamen to the throne. 189 The lease was later fixed for 99 years. The leased territory covers about 540 square kilometers, 208.4 square miles, including about 80,000 inhabitants. 190 Das Staatsarchiv, Band 61, number 11518. 191 Myers, pages 281 to 282, China, number 1, 1899, number 65, Takushijoyaku, pages 359 to 360, 363 to 365. 192 For the extraordinary proceedings of the German minister in his dealings with the Chinese government, see China, number 1, 1898, NOS 5, 6, 17, 20, 34, 35, 40, 53, 70, 73, and 113. Also see Takushijoyaku, pages 355 to 357. 193 See China, number 1, 1898, NOS 39, 49, 74. It is interesting to observe that when, in order to restore the balance of power in the Gulf of Pechili, which had been disturbed by the lease of Port Arthur by Russia, England demanded the lease of Wei Highway, she took pains to explain to Germany that her acquisition of the port, the meaning of which was purely military, would in no way interfere with the German interests in Shantung, and that there would be no attempt to make railway connections with Wei Highway. An interesting diplomatic correspondence followed this explanation, which it is hardly necessary to describe. What is emphasized here is that England, in negotiating the lease of Wei Highway, largely reciprocated the cordiality Germany had shown in her occupation of Kiaochao. See China, number 1, 1899, NOS 2, 8, 9, 10, and 31. 194 China, number 1, 1898, p. 20. 195 Ibid, p. 14, number 39. Sir Claude MacDonald had already written to the Tsungli Yamen, on December 10, I have the honor to inform your highnesses and your excellencies that I have received telegraphic instructions from Her Majesty's government to address the Yamen with regard to the concession in Shantung which it is reported that the German government has asked from China. I am directed to state that Her Majesty's government will demand equality of treatment for British subjects according to the treaty rights possessed by Great Britain, and that Her Majesty's government will require compensation on any points in respect to which those rights may be disregarded. Ibid, p. 28, enclosure in number 70. 196 See China, number 1, 1899, p. 240, number 322, China, number 1, 1900, pages 12 to 13, 35, 146 to 147, 106, 233, and 241 to 244. 197. It is unnecessary to recount the painful negotiations in 1898-9 concerning the Tientsin-Xinjiang Railway concession, in which the German claim in Shantung was strongly presented, and had to be recognized to a large extent by the British government. See China, No. 1, 1900, pages 14, 16, 17-18, 33, 118, 121, 175, 180. 198. Cf. China, No. 1, 1898, NOS 1 and 15. China seems to have requested Russia to advise Germany to reconsider her action. Later, Russia is said to have reported that she had failed to change the mind of the Kaiser. 199. Count Muravief's remark to Sir N. O'Connor, the British charge at St. Petersburg, on March 28, 1898. China, No. 1, 1898, No. 125. 200. Kiaochao was occupied on November 17. 3 Russian war vessels came to Port Arthur on December 18, 1897. The German-Chinese agreement was concluded on March 5. The formal demand by Russia was presented about the 7th, and granted on the 27th of the same month, 1898. 201. Ibid, pages 42-43, NOS 95, 96, 98, 100. It is interesting to note that, on February 4, 1902, when negotiations were in progress between Russia and China, the former supporting large exclusive demands made by the Russo-Chinese Bank in Manchuria, M. Lesser, the Russian minister, said that his government was merely asking for privileges similar to those of Germany in Shantung. U.S. 57th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume IP 274. 202. China, No. 1, 1898, p9, No. 231. 203. The statement made by Count Muravief, on December 22, 1897, at his diplomatic reception, and reported by Mr. W. E. Goskin. China, No. 1, 1898, pages 12-13, No. 37. 204. See Ibid, NOS 26, 43, 62. At the same time, M. Pavlov, the Russian charge at Peking, demanded the dismissal of Mr. Kinder, British chief engineer of the Northern Railway. Ibid, No. 38, CFNOS 111, 115, 117. 205. M. Pavlov's own story to Sir Claude MacDonald, on March 17, 1898. China, No. 2, 1899, No. 2. 206. China, No. 1, 1898, No. 26. 207. Ibid, NOS 30, 32, 43, 46. Some of the other terms were, 1. The maritime and native customs, salt tax, and likin, as security; 2. A railway from the Burmese frontier to the Yangtze Valley; 3. A guarantee against the cession of territory in the Yangtze Valley to any other power; 4. The opening of some other ports; 5. The pledge that so long as the British trade with China was larger than the trade of any other nation, the Inspector General of Customs should always be an Englishman; 6. A freer internal navigation, etc. These terms seem to have been framed so as to protect British interests in China strictly within the scope of the most favored nation principle. The demand for the opening of Talienwan and Nanning strongly prejudiced England against Russia and France, while the Burma-Yangs Railway was unpleasing to France, and the non-alienation of the river valley was sometimes regarded by Russia as a counterpart of her own claims beyond the Great Wall. The whole story of the loan negotiation, as well as that of the Northern Railway Extension Loan, is highly interesting and important in the recent history of China, but we are here concerned with the bearing of the first loan on the development of the Manchurian question. 208 It is highly interesting to note that during the latter part of 1903, when Russian aggression in Manchuria and on the northern frontier of Korea was feared, the American and Japanese governments, with the moral support of the British, made successful efforts to open Mukden, Tatung and Antung to foreign trade. This proposition had met a strong Russian opposition, which also delayed, till after the outbreak of the present war, the opening of Waiju on the Korean border. 209 China, Number 1, 1898, NOS 51, 57. 210 China, Number 1, 1898, Number 59. 211 Ibid, NOS 72, 76, 123, etc. 212. The most favored nation clause is referred to, which sometimes in general and sometimes in specific terms, and sometimes reciprocal and conditional, but nearly always unilateral and unconditional is inserted in the Treaty of China with each power. See Mayers, OPCIT 213. A dispute arose later between the Russian and British governments on this word any, tout. The latter interpreted it to mean any port secured by Russia in China, while the former claimed that the Tsar's government had never promised to open Port Arthur to foreign trade. March 13, 1898, China, Number 1, 1898, pages 47 to 48, Number 114. 214 Ibid, Number 76. 215 China, Number 1, 1898, Number 83. 216 CP 133, below. 217 Compare the Russian reply to Secretary Hay's note of September, 1899, pages 135 to 138, below. 218 On January 17 China, Number 1, 1898, Number 56. Cf. Number 62. 219 Ibid, NOS 65, 69, 75, 78, 79. 220 In his speech before the House of Lords on February 8. See Ibid, NOS 82, 83, 87, The Parliamentary Debates, 4th Series, Volume 53, pages 40 to 41. 221 China, Number 1, 1898, Number 54. 222 Ibid, Number 59. 223 China, Number 1, 1898, Number 85. 224 Ibid, Number 88. 225 Ibid, NOS 95, 96, 99, 100, 101, 103. 226 China, Number 1, 1898, Number 95, Salisbury to MacDonald. 227 The Russian government soon had occasion to gauge the strength of the British protest, for, on March 8, Sir N. O'Connor made a striking statement to Count Muraviv, as will be seen in the following report, Ibid, Number 108, O'Connor to Salisbury. I alluded, as no doubt His Excellency was aware, to the junction of the Burmese and Chinese railway systems. This demand became at once still more necessary and reasonable if greater privileges of the same kind were accorded to Russia in the Liaodong Peninsula, as they had apparently already been accorded in Manchuria. Count Muraviv did not, however, respond to these remarks beyond saying that he supposed the Burma-Chinese line would, in this case, descend to the valley of the Yangtze. The Count's remark may be considered a sufficient reply, when it is seen in connection with another remark he made a few moments earlier. When Sir N. O'Connor alluded to the objectionable features of leasing Port Arthur, the Foreign Minister reminded him that British interests were principally represented in the neighbourhood of the Yangtze. Russia would evade the British protest by turning England's attention to her own sphere, in which Russia had little interest, and would not object to a British repetition there of Russia's conduct in Manchuria. Muraviv must have thought that O'Connor, by his reference to the Burmese railway, now voluntarily threw himself into his net. Russia later succeeded in inducing England to conclude the Anglo-Russian Railway Declaration of April 28, 1899, delimiting in a negative manner the railway spheres of the two powers in China, Russia pledging not to seek concessions and not to obstruct those of the British in the Yangtze Valley, and England pledging similarly in regard to Russian concessions beyond the Great Wall. See China, No. 2, 1899, No. 138. The Russian government naturally considered the conclusion of this agreement as a diplomatic victory over the British, and seemed to have interpreted its terms as implying that all the territory beyond the Great Wall was the Russian sphere, not only of railway concessions, but also of general interests and influence. Already in May of the same year, M. Pavlov renewed his demand at Peking for the concession of a Russian railway to be built directly to the Chinese capital, thus even overreaching the limit set in the British agreement of less than a fortnight previous. See China, No. 1, 1900, pages 112, 116, 120, 129, 132 to 133, 214 to 215. 228 China, No. 1, 1898, NOS 101, 105, 108, 110, 114, 120, 149. 229 China, No. 1, 1898, No. 104. 230 Ibid, No. 114. 231 Ibid, No. 120. 232 China, No. 1, 1898, No. 138. The Marquis did not refer to a matter of enormous importance, that the proposed railways would connect the immense land and sea forces of Russia, which he emphasized. 233 China, No. 1, 1900, NOS 123 and 133. 234 I cannot say that my efforts were successful. I was unable to induce His Excellency to modify his views. Ibid, NOS 125 and 132. 235 Ibid, No. 126. 236 China, No. 1, 1900, No. 129. 237 Ibid, No. 138. 238 Ibid, NOS 134, 136, and 137. 239 CF Ibid, NOS 135, 137, 138, 139, 140, 149, and 151. 240 Ibid, No. 144. The agreement was signed at Peking on July 1. See Treaty Series, No. 14, 1898. 241 Balance of power in Gulf of Pechili is materially altered by surrender of Port Arthur by the Yamen to Russia. It is therefore necessary to obtain, etc. Salisbury to MacDonald, March 25, China, No. 1, 1898, No. 129. Cf. also China, No. 1, 1899, No. 2. It should be said, in justice to Great Britain, that at first, when the Chinese government intimated toward the end of February that they would lease Wei Highway to her if she would accept it, Lord Salisbury considered such an offer premature, for his government aimed at discouraging any alienation of Chinese territory. Ibid, NOS 90 and 91. 242 Two other instances may here be cited to further illustrate the policy of the British government during this critical period of time. 1. Soon after the appearance of Russian war vessels at Port Arthur, Admiral Buller, of the China Station of the British Navy, arrived at Chemulpo with 7 ships on December 29 and ordered the Immortalite and Iphigenia to proceed to Port Arthur. The former was, on January 10, ordered to leave for Chafua. The presence of the British boats created a bad impression on Russia, which requested England to avoid dangers of conflict in the Russian sphere of influence. The British government explained that the ships had been sent by the Admiral without instruction from the Admiralty, and would soon leave, in ordinary course of cruising. It was added, at the same time, that British ships had a perfect right to proceed to Port Arthur. It was reported at one time that the 2 boats had been ordered away from Port Arthur under protest from Russia. Ibid, NOS 31, 48, 52, 63, 66, 68. 2. On March 8, Sir Claude MacDonald was informed by the Tsung-Li Yamen that the only reason given by M. Pavlov for the demand of the lease of the 2 ports was to assist in protecting Manchuria against the aggression of other powers. Probably England and Japan were meant, and the Yamen was fully alive to the absurdity of this pretext, but was unable to resist the Russian demands. It therefore begged earnestly that the British government would assist it by giving a formal assurance to the Russian government that England had no designs on Manchuria. It does not seem to have been thought necessary by the British government to give such an assurance. See Ibid, NOS 100 and 109. 243 China, No. 1, 1898, No. 114, O'Connor to Salisbury, March 13. 244 Ibid, No. 29. 245 The Japanese government, said Baron Nishi, Foreign Minister of Japan, confidentially, to Sir Ernest Sato, about March 20, had been anxious that China should be able to maintain her position at Wei Highway, but if she found it impossible to do so, Japan would have no objection to its being held by a power disposed to assist in maintaining the independence of China. China, No. 1, 1899, No. 35. Cf. also NOS 49, 79, 81, 107, etc. 246. Ibid, NOS 85, 112, 118, 231, 238. Russia had undertaken to request Japan to promise that China would secure Wei Highway after the Japanese evacuation, but Japan declined to make such a pledge. Ibid, No. 30. In April, 1902, the control of Wei Highway was transferred from the Admiralty to the Colonial Office. The mouth of the harbor is so large that it would require an enormous expenditure and large forces to fortify and defend it adequately. At the time when England leased the port, she was hardly inclined to let financial considerations thwart her effort to restore her prestige so abruptly foreshadowed by that of Russia. In 1902, however, the lately concluded Anglo-Japanese Agreement of Alliance rendered the fortification of Wei Highway no longer necessary. See Takushijoyaku, pages 172 to 173. 247 China, number 1, 1899, pages 127 to 129, number 187, dated Peking, April 29. Regarding this précis, Sir Claude says, it bears every sign of foreign authorship, and the original cannot have been drafted by a Chinese. I have no doubt that the document correctly represents the sense of the original agreement, for it fully corresponds with what I have been able to learn of the contents of the latter. M. Cordier also relies on this précis in his Histoire de relations de la Chine avec les puissances occidentales, Volume 3. Pages 362 to 364. 248 Takushijoyaku, pages 244 to 245. This Chinese text naturally clears up some points which are obscure in the précis. 249 See China, number 1, 1899, p. 188, number 273. Also Cordier, Histoire, Volume 3. Pages 365 to 366. A Japanese version obtained from the Foreign Office at Tokyo appears in Takushijoyaku, pages 246 to 247. The special agreement was supplemented by another agreement concluded on April 25, OS, 1899. 250 The boundary of the leased territory began with the northern side of Atang Bay, Port Adams, on the west coast of the Liaodong Peninsula, and passed through and included the Atang Mountains, ending near Paitsewo, and including the adjacent waters and isles. The northern limit of the neutral ground started at the mouth of the Kaichou River, passed north of Yuanxicheng and along the Taiyang River, and ended at and included its mouth. 251 See the Tsar's telegraphic message to the Chinese Emperor, on March 15, 27, and his imperial orders of March 17, 29 and July-August 30, 11. China, number 1, 1899, pages 20 to 21, 1 to 2, and 262 to 263. 252 Meaning, presumably, east of Shanhaiquan. 253 See China, number 1, 1900, pages 292 to 293, 304 to 311, and 335. Also the Tsusho Isen, Japanese Consular Reports, April 28, 1904, pages 33 to 46. 254 See China, number 1, 1900, pages 262 to 263. 255 China, number 1, 1900, pages 308 to 311. 256 Conditions at Dalny since its foundation are minutely described by M. Suzuki, agent of the Japanese Foreign Office in the Tsusho Isen for April 23, pages 39 to 49, 28, pages 32 to 46, May 3, pages 37 to 49, 8, pages 42 to 55, 12, pages 36 to 42, and 18, pages 33 to 37, 1904. 257 China, number 2, 1900, number 1. 258 Ibid, NOS 2, 3, 4, and enclosures 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, in number 5. 259 The italics in the quotations are the authors. 260 China, number 2, 1900, enclosure 6 in number 5. 261 Ibid, number 5, White to Salisbury, March 30, 1900. 262 cf Ibid, number 6. 263 It may reasonably be said that the meaning of the intervention of Russia, France, and Germany, in 1895, in regard to Japan's claim upon the Liaodong Peninsula may be gathered, in a retroactive way, from Russia's conduct in Manchuria since 1896. At any rate, M. Pavlov declared, in October, 1897, that the Russian government intended that the provinces of China bordering on the Russian frontier must not come under the influence of any nation except Russia. China, number 1, 1898, p. 6. This declaration throws light not only on the Trans-Manchurian Railway concessions and the lease of ports, but also on Russia's action respecting the Northern Railway extension and the consequent Anglo-Russian Agreement of April, 1899. In May, 1898, there were already 200 Russian soldiers in Kirin, and in December 2000 in Port Arthur and Talienwan, while many Cossacks guarded railway construction, and many barracks were being hurriedly built, so that there were sufficient indications even before 1900 that Russia regarded Manchuria as her sphere of influence. 264 May 29 China, number 3, 1900, number 5. 265 cf China, number 4, 1900, number 1, June 5. 266 China, number 3, 1900, number 94, number 4, 1900, number 1, June 8. 267 China, number 3, 1900, number 219, June 16 to 26. 268 Ibid, number 133, number 4, 1900, number 2, evening, June 13. 269 China, number 3, 1900, number 122, June 13. 270 Ibid, NOS 132, 148, 157, and 186, June 17. 271 Ibid, number 157. 272 Ibid, number 159. It is true that some of these events had not been known to Muraviv, but enough news had reached him to show the extreme gravity of the situation. 273 Ibid, number 149, June 16. 274 Ibid, number 159. Also see NOS 43, 45, 48, 65, 58, 114, 120, all indicating the optimistic view of the Count. 275 cf Ibid, number 120, June 13. 276 China, number 3, 1900, number 149, June 16. In the Tsar's reply to the Chinese Emperor's appeal for a friendly intervention, it was stated that the efforts of Russia had but one object in view, namely, to assist in the re-establishment of order and tranquility in the Chinese Empire, and, inspired by their traditional friendship for China, the imperial government have decided to render to the Chinese government every assistance with a view to repressing the present troubles. From the Russian Official Gazette, as reported by Sir Charles Scott on August 2, 1900, China, number 1, 1901, number 105. It is noteworthy that Russia had raised objections to sending large forces from Japan to the relief of Peking, one reason being that she supposed they would be commissioned, not only to rescue the Legatians, but also to suppress rebellion and restore peace in Peking and Tientsin Ibid, number 29. 277 Ibid, number 175. A writer of diplomatic history of Russia, himself a Russian, considers that the anti-foreign uprising was owing to the conduct of other powers, presumably in sending Christian missionaries, in which Russia had never participated, and that, therefore, it was purely accidental that she took part in the Boxer campaign. See the Tuedo Bunkwai Hokoku, number 48, pages 35 to 36. 278 Takushijoyaku, p. 258. It is said that Mwit was at the time opposed to sending so large forces into Manchuria. 279 The Kokumin, March 8, 1901. 280 But how soon before the order of mobilization is unknown. Writing on June 29 from St. Petersburg, Sir Charles Scott said that the Russian government was alarmed by some news received on that day of the serious disturbances which had occurred near the Manchurian railway, and it was rumored that the Boxers were attacking and destroying the line north of Mukden, and had cut off telegraphic communications with Vladivostok. The Chinese legation at St. Petersburg is much alarmed by this report, continued the British ambassador, as they had been seriously warned that the slightest movement against the safety of the Russian line would be followed by an instant and forcible action by Russia. China, number 3, 1900, number 240. 281 The Kokumin, March 8, 1901, etc. 282. China, number 1, 1901, number 47. 283 There were other cases reported of the slaughter of non-combatants. The aggregate of those people killed was said to have reached 25,000. See Takushijoyaku, p. 261, which gives a list of these cases in detail. 284 The Kokumin, March 8, 1901, etc. 285. See the reports of the British consuls Hosey and Fulford and the American consul Miller, in China, number 5, 1900, p. 47, number 2, 1904, pages 29 to 33, etc., and the 57th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume I, pages 147 to 158. At one time the relations between the American sailors and citizens and the Russian authorities were wrought up to a high tension, and Mr. Miller used so strong language in his correspondence with the latter that he had to be warned by Minister Conger of Peking and Assistant Secretary Pierce at Washington. 286 See Takushijoyaku, pages 258 to 262. 287 Count Lambsdorff said on November 22, 1903, to Mr. Kurano, Japanese minister at St. Petersburg, that Russia once took possession of Manchuria by right of conquest. The Kwampo, March 24, 1904, Supplement, p. 8. 288 The circular note addressed to the powers on June 3/16, China, number 3, 1900, number 49, the letter to the Chinese government on June 11/24, China, number 2, 1904, p. 18, the Tsar's reply to the Chinese Emperor, China, number 1, 1901, number 105, etc. The Emperor had sent a specially worded personal message to each of the heads of the French, German, Russian, British, American, and Japanese nations, once about July 19 and again on October 14, that is, before and after the capture of Peking by the Allied forces. In each case the Emperor made a special appeal to the person addressed, and begged him to take the initiative in coming to China's assistance in solving the situation. The various replies are highly instructive. It seems that the Tsar supposed that he had alone been singled out by the Chinese Empire for the first special plea, and answered accordingly. See China, No. 1, 1901, NOS 1, 51, 56, 61, 78, 79, 105, 113, 252, China, No. 5, 1901, NOS 5, 24, 72, 108, 134, 174, 197, China, No. 2, 1904, p. 56th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume I pages 293 to 296. 289 China, No. 3, 1900, No. 149. 290 These principles, says Lord Salisbury, on July 15, have never been accepted by Her Majesty's government, nor have we as yet discussed with other powers the circumstances to which those principles might possibly apply. China, No. 1, 1901, No. 44. Secretary Hay thought that the Russian charge's oral communication was not explicit enough to enable him to comment upon the so-called fundamental principles of Russia. Ibid, No. 114. Later, about July 30, Mr. Hay replied to Russia by referring to his own circular note of July 3, and said that he deemed it premature to forecast the means of bringing about those results, i.e., the restoration of order and responsible government in China. Ibid, No. 140. It is particularly remarkable that two of the powers most interested in the principles proposed by Russia should be so conservative when the question was propounded by that power. 291 China, No. 2, 1904, pages 1 and 18. It is interesting to compare these fundamental principles of Russia with the principles laid down in Secretary Hay's circular telegraph addressed to the powers on July 3, or probably some days before the Russian note. The purpose of the President is, as it has been heretofore, it said, to act concurrently with the other powers, first, in opening up communication with Peking and securing the American officials, missionaries, and other Americans who are in danger, secondly, in affording all protection everywhere in China to American life and property, thirdly, in guarding and protecting all legitimate American interests, and fourthly, in aiding to prevent a spread of the disorders to the other provinces of the empire and a recurrence of such disorders. It is, of course, too early to forecast the means of attaining this last result, but the policy of the government of the United States is to seek a solution which may bring about permanent safety and peace to China, preserve Chinese territorial and administrative entity, protect all rights guaranteed to friendly powers by treaty and international law, and safeguard for the world the principle of equal and impartial trade with all parts of the Chinese Empire. The 56th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume IP 299. It will be observed that the American note is not only probably earlier in date, but also much wider in scope, than the Russian propositions, for the former contains the open door principle, among others, which receives no reference in the latter. It should be remembered, however, that the American note was not a proposition to the other powers. 292 China, No. 1, 1901, No. 256. 293 statements of similar import occur in the official messenger of August 13, in the instructions given on October 25 by Count Lambsdorff to the Russian representatives abroad, and those on December 28 by General Kuropatkin to the Governors-General of the Amur and Kwantung provinces. See Takushijoyaku, pages 259 to 260. 294 cf. China, No. 1, 1901, NOS 267, 300, 314, 315. Also see the most interesting Russian document, quoted in China, number 2, 1904, p. 20. One of its passages reads as follows: "It must not be forgotten that an attack on the ancient traditions of the Chinese and on the prestige of their government might be attended by the most disastrous consequences, all the more so that the international troops cannot occupy indefinitely the capital of a country of 400 million inhabitants, whose right to live at home as they please can hardly be questioned." 295 China, number 1, 1901, number 306. Also see number 313. On August 19 and 21, Li Hongchang wired to Wu Tingfang to urge upon the United States government that, inasmuch as the declared purpose of the Allies to relieve the Legations had now been accomplished, they should suspend hostilities, withdraw their troops, and appoint envoys to negotiate with China. See Ibid, number 239, and the 56th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume I, pages 197, 288 to 290. We may naturally infer either that Li sent similar telegrams to Russia, or that Russia had consulted Li before the circular was sent to the powers. The general tenor of thought is so alike in the telegrams and in the circular. 296 Russia herself was conscious of the fact that others attributed to her the motive of ingratiating herself with China at a critical moment by taking, separately from the other powers, an action favorable to China. See China, number 2, 1904, pages 19 to 20. 297 See China, number 1, 1901, NOS 275, Austria, 280, 322, 328, France, 309, Italy, 281, 293, 305, 317, 318, 321, 327, 335, 378, 383, England, 307, number 5, 1901, NOS 110, 124, 127, Japan, number 1, 1901, NOS 270, 315, 56th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume 2. Pages 304 to 305, 378 to 379, 205, the United States. As a matter of fact, the Boxers still roamed about Peking, and the Chinese court, which had fled to Taiyuan, was still under the control of Prince Tuan and his associates. A hasty withdrawal of troops from Peking would have been disastrous in its effect upon the foreigners and native Christians. 298 See China, number 1, 1901, NOS 356, Russian Proposition, 371, 395, 401, England, 398, Italy, number 5, 1901, number 128, Japan, House Documents, OPCIT, Volume I, pages 203 to 204, 305 to 306, 381 to 382. 299 China, number 1, 1901, number 375. 300 China, number 7, 1901, NOS 21, 76, 81, 84, 86, 95, 103, 149, 153, 154, 174, 187, 189. 301 ibid, NOS 1 and 7. 302 ibid, NOS 2, 7, 9. 303 China, number 7, 1901, NOS 11, 14, 19, 20, 22, 23, 25, 30, 35, 36, 57, 60, 103. 304 ibid, NOS 24, 27, 37, 38, 43, 50, 54, 55, 66, 68. 305 ibid, NOS 39, 77. 306 ibid, 40, 78. 307 The British Parliamentary Papers, Treaty Series, Number 1, 1900. 308 On November 1, Lord Salisbury wrote to the British charge at St. Petersburg in unusually outspoken language, as follows: in the event of the Russians making any complaint of our having concluded the Anglo-German agreement without previously consulting them, you should dwell on the fact that the conduct and language of Russian officers in the Far East, in respect to the Chinese railway from Niuquang to Peking, and the way in which the property of British subjects on that railway has been dealt with by the Russian military authorities, has caused much perplexity to Her Majesty's government. The Russian government have given us many satisfactory assurances with respect to their intentions in these matters, but the little attention paid to the avowed policy of the Russian government by officers on the spot has deterred us from fuller communication. China, Number 7, 1901, Number 45. 309 c. For instance, the explanation offered in Takushijoyaku, pages 384 to 386. 310 China, Number 5, 1901, NOS 4 and 7, Enclosure 2. 311 ibid, NOS 6, 8, and 9. 312 The 56th Congress, 2D Session, Home Documents, Volume IP 355. 313 The italics are the authors. 314 China, Number 5, 1900, Number 5. 315 Also see the debate in the House of Lords, on August 6, 1901, between Earl Spencer and the Marquis of Lansdowne. The Parliamentary Debates, 4th Series, Volume 98, pages 1351 to 1365. 316 At the House of Lords, on August 6, 1901. The Japanese government, also, in its reply to a question of a member of the National Diet, interpreted the agreement to apply to the whole of the Chinese Empire. Takushijoyaku, p. 389. 317 At the Reichstag on March 15, 1901. The London Times, August 6, 1901, p. 7. He is also said to have declared to the Russian representative at Berlin that Manchuria was outside of the sphere of German commercial rights, and consequently had no relation with the Anglo-German agreement. It was reported even that Manchuria was originally mentioned specifically in the British draft of the agreement, but the word was struck out at the request of Germany, and the more abstract phrase, spheres of influence, was used. Therefore Takushijoyaku, pages 388 to 389. 318 The court had fled toward Taiyunfu before the Allied troops reached Peking, and then started toward Sinanfu, the capital of many a historic dynasty, on October 1. 319 Russia had early advocated accepting Li as plenipotentiary, while other powers were still skeptical of the nature of his credentials. See China, Number 1, 1901, NOS 254, 356, 368, 371, 398, 401, China, number 5, 1901, NOS 5, 31, 111, 112, 128, 216, U.S. 56th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume I pages 203 to 204, 305 to 306, 381 to 382. It was not till September 20 that Li entered Peking. Prince Jing had arrived there September 3. The appointment of the prince as a plenipotentiary is said to have been partly due to Japanese influence. 320 Documents diplomatiques, Chine, 1899 to 1900, number 327, p. 174. Also see China, number 5, 1901, pages 5, 46, 53 to 54. 321 China, number 5, 1901, number 17. 322 For the Japanese amendments, see Ibid, NOS 60, 151, 178. 323 Russia openly declared in her Messager officielle of March 24, April 6, 1901, that the Russian views regarding the settlement of the trouble in North China, as distinguished from Manchuria, had served the French government as a basis for the elaboration of the latter's propositions. China, number 2, 1904, pages 20 to 21. 324 November 5 China, number 5, 1901, number 117. 325 November 28 Ibid, NOS 178 and 198. 326 China, number 2, 1904, p. 21. 327 Ibid, p. 20. 328 Russia allowed the question of the indemnity in Manchuria to be dealt with at the General Conferences at Peking together with the indemnity respecting North China. In the matter of the punishment of guilty local officials, from the discussion of which Russia abruptly withdrew herself, the representatives of the other powers included Manchuria in their consideration. 329 China, number 2, 1904, number 5, January 4, 1901. Sir Charles Scott, ambassador at St. Petersburg, reported on January 5, that it appeared to be generally believed there that some provisional agreement, such as that indicated, had been concluded by Russia with the local authorities in Manchuria, and that she might eventually acquire by treaty the right to finish building the railway line through Manchuria to Port Arthur, and to protect it herself, the rights of the Russo-Chinese company being transferred to the Russian government. Ibid, number 4. 330 The London Times, January 3, 1901, p. 3. In this and other reports Dr. Morrison seems to have translated from Chinese texts. 331 The Russian official messenger of April 6, 1901, stated that temporary agreements in writing, modus vivendi, respecting the re-establishment of the local civil administration in the 3 provinces of Manchuria were, before all else, concluded between the Russian military authorities and the Chinese Xianxians generals of the 3 provinces. China, number 2, 1904, p. 22. 332 China, number 2, 1904, number 5, January 4. 333 The Tartar general Tsang-Chi was degraded for this offense, but Russia succeeded in reinstating him. The Times, February 20, 1901, p. 5. 334 China, Number 2, 1904, Number 8. 335 Ibid, Number 13, February 13. 336 The opinion of the German government was that China should not conclude with any power individual treaties of a territorial or financial character before they can estimate their obligations toward all the powers as a whole, and before the compliance with such obligations is accepted. Ibid, NOS 12, 13. 337 Ibid, Number 19, February 19. What action the remaining powers took is not shown in the Blue Books. Austria-Hungary and Italy are said to have also protested. 338 China, Number 2, 1901. 339 China, Number 2, 1901. 340 China, Number 2, 1904, Number 6. 341 China, Number 2, 1904, Number 6. 342 The Times, February 20, 1901, p. 5. 343 Ibid The Chinese argue, added Dr. Morrison, that Russia, having no interests south of the Great Wall, no missionaries, no trade, and no troops, can reasonably expect in return benevolent treatment from China in any agreement proposed outside the Great Wall, especially as Russia is in military occupation. Russia appears determined to profit by the condition to which China is reduced by the action of the other powers, just as she profited by obtaining the Primorsk province after the War of 1860, and Port Arthur and Talienwan subsequent to the War of 1895. 344 China, Number 2, 1904, Number 14. Cf. Ibid, NOS 25 and 42. 345 The Times, February 28, 1901, p. 5. 346 See pages 91 to 92, above. 347 China, Number 2, 1904, Number 42. Other versions are similar in substance to this one, which was forwarded by Sir Ernest Sato. 348 See China, Number 2, 1904, NOS 16, 17, 32, 35. 349 China, Number 2, 1904, Number 30. 350 Ibid, Number 18, March 1. 351 Ibid, Number 15, February 28. 352 Ibid, Number 16. 353 China, Number 2, 1904, Number 21, March 4. 354 Ibid, Number 31. 355 Ibid, Number 24. 356 Ibid, NOS 22 and 23, March 5. 357 Ibid, Number 28. 358 China, Number 6, 1901, NOS 61, January 30, and 119, February 20. 359 cf, e.g., Ibid, Number 62. 360 From the Official Messenger of St. Petersburg of April 5, 1901, China, Number 2, 1904, p. 22. 361 China, Number 6, 1901, Number 135. 362 Ibid, Number 176. It may be remembered that Japan had even a stronger reason than Russia to abstain from all the unpleasant questions connected with the missionaries, but it is needless to say that, in her joint action with other powers in the matter of the official punishment and other questions, she regarded missionaries and other foreigners alike as subjects with certain inviolable rights. 363 Dr. Morrison wrote from Peking on March 3, to render China more willing speedily to sign the convention. M. de Geers has informed Li Hongchang that Russia will not participate in the demand for the execution of 10 provincial officials guilty of inhuman murders of white men, whose death justice demands. Thus the murdered English men, women, and children may be described as England's contribution toward securing to Russia the advantages derived from this convention. The London Times, March 4, 1901, p. 5. 364 China, No. 6, 1901, No. 234. 365 China, No. 2, 1904, NOS 28, 29, 42. 366 Ibid, NOS 28, 30. Later confirmed by the Chinese officials. See number 33. 367 China, No. 2, 1904, No. 32. 368 Ibid, No. 33. 369 Probably Ibid, No. 31. 370 This telegram has not appeared in the blue books. 371 China, No. 2, 1904, No. 35. 372 Ibid, No. 6. 373 Ibid, No. 20. 374 China, No. 2, 1904, No. 26. 375 China, No. 2, 1904, No. 39. 376 China, No. 2, 1904, No. 34. 377 The Kokumin, April 6, 1901. 378 China, No. 2, 1904, No. 37, pages 17 to 23. 379 The Kokumin, May 19, 1901. 380 China, No. 2, 1904, No. 40. In No. 42, August 21, Sir Ernest gives, in 3 parallel columns, the original terms proposed by Russia in February, the alterations of March, and the proposals now made in August. The last two are nearly identical. 381 China, No. 2, 1904, No. 41, August 16. 382 C. Mayers, pages 283 to 318, or the Blue Book, Treaty Series, No. 17, 1902, Final Protocol between the foreign powers and China for the resumption of friendly relations. 383 Takushijoyaku, p. 266. 384 See the summary of Li's highly interesting letter of September 30, which has just appeared in the London Times for October 12, 1904, p. 6. 385 Takushijoyaku, pages 266 to 267, The Kokumin, November 2, pages 23, 30, 190 to 191. 386 The U.S. 57th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume IP 272. 387 The U.S. 57th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume IP 271. Compare a version in Takushijoyaku, pages 266 to 267. 388 The U.S. 57th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume IP 272. 389 The U.S. 57th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume I pages 273 to 274. 390 Ibid, pages 273 to 274, Conger to Hay. 391 The U.S. 57th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume I pages 926 to 928. 392 The italics in the quotation are the authors. 393 Observe how powerfully Russia applies this argument. On February 4, M. Lesser said that Russia was merely asking privileges in Manchuria similar to those granted to Germany in Shantung. The U.S. 57th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume IP 274. Russia, if she would, could with a certain amount of impunity inquire of Great Britain and other powers how it was that they allowed Germany to acquire her apparently exclusive rights in Shantung, and now objected to Russia's following her example only on a larger scale. 394 The U.S. 57th Congress, 2D Session, House Documents, Volume IP 929. 395 Ibid, pages 277 to 279. 396 i.e., the draft of March limited the period of evacuation to 1 year, instead of a year and a half, as in the Convention of April. 397 The reader will remember the cordial exchange of views between the two powers when Weihai Wei was leased to Great Britain in 1898. There occurred in the East several affairs of minor importance in which the British and Japanese authorities acted with mutual goodwill, e.g., the arrangement for a British concession at Niu Quang in 1899. See China, No. 1, 1900, pages 215 to 218. 398 See the British Parliamentary Papers, China, No. 3, 1900, NOS 146, 121, 129, 134, 141, 155, 169 to 171, 180 to 181, 188 to 189, 191, 193, 203, 210, 216, 238, 241, 212, 217, 224, 236, 246 to 247, 252, 260, 265 to 267, China, No. 1, 1901, NOS 122 to 124, 42, 4, 18, 23, 29, 32, July 13, 1900, 41, 52, 57, 38. 399 Mr. Kato, foreign minister at Tokyo at the time, remarked later that even in matters about which the two powers had not exchanged their views, their representatives at Peking acted in such mutual sympathy that it was suspected that a secret understanding must have existed between them. Takushijoyaku, p. 411. 400 In this connection it was thought not improbable that Germany herself might have informally suggested the feasibility of a triple alliance between herself and Great Britain and Japan in the same line as the Anglo-German agreement, which Japan had joined as a signatory. In his speech before the Reichstag, however, Herr von Bülow declared, on March 3, that Germany was not the father of the Anglo-Japanese alliance. At any rate, the German suggestion, if there was one, never materialized, but gave place to another and still more important form of agreement in which the world politics of the versatile Kaiser played no part. 401 The position which one of the elder statesmen out of office, Marquis Ito, occupied in this diplomatic evolution, has been a subject of much speculation. He was not only on his tour in America and Europe when the agreement was concluded, but also had made efforts at St. Petersburg to come to an entente with Russia. From this, it has even been charged that he was opposed to an agreement with Great Britain. It now appears, however, that he had discussed the latter question with Premier Katsura before he sailed for Europe, and that he proceeded to St. Petersburg with a full authorization from the government to exchange views with Count Lambsdorff regarding Korea. In the meantime, the cabinet continued its negotiations with Great Britain. Each must have kept the other well informed of the progress of the respective negotiations, with this important difference, however, that Marquis Ito apparently entertained the view, which the cabinet respected without accepting, that a British alliance would be, not less desirable, but more difficult of realization, than a Russian agreement concerning Korea. Unexpectedly to the Marquis, his effort did not materialize as well as he had hoped, while, on the other hand, it seemed as if his significant presence in Russia had hastened the hands of the jealous British Foreign Office, which now put its seal upon the terms as agreed upon with rather unexpected readiness. 402 The writer is indebted to the Kokumin Shimbun for many important suggestions regarding the negotiations between the two powers which resulted in the conclusion of the agreement. Tokusugyoyaku, pages 407 to 411, gives a brief explanatory view of the conditions under which the agreement was concluded. 403 The British Parliamentary Papers, Treaty Series, No. 3, 1902, Agreement between the United Kingdom and Japan relative to China and Korea, signed at London, January 30, 1902. 404 The British Parliamentary Papers, Japan, No. 1, 1902, Dispatch to His Majesty's Minister at Tokyo, forwarding agreement between Great Britain and Japan, of January 30, 1902. 405 Observe the clearness of this statement. This idea is only implied in the Anglo-Japanese agreement. It is remarkable that an explicit statement of this nature should come, as it did, from the powers from which it would have been less expected than from their rivals. 406 China, No. 2, 1904, No. 50. The so-called Triple Alliance of Europe was renewed in May, with a declaration that it, together with the Russo-French alliance, maintained peace. The latter, as is shown here, had extended itself from Europe to the Far East, owing largely to the conclusion of the Anglo-Japanese agreement. The growing solidarity of the world's international politics may in some degree be discerned here. 407 The Evening Post, March 20, 1902, Tokusugyoyaku, pages 415 to 416. 408 The Kokumin, March 23, 1902. 409 C, for instance, Ministère d'Affaires étrangères, Documents diplomatiques, Chine, 1894-8, No. 19, p. 12, No. 36, p. 29, No. 37, p. 30, No. 61, pages 45 to 46, No. 65, p. 49. 410 During the peace negotiations at Peking after the Boxer War, Russia and France cooperated as closely as did Great Britain, Japan, and the United States. 411 See pages 77 ff. above. 412 It was said with a great deal of probability that the conclusion of the Anglo-Japanese agreement had had a reassuring effect upon Prince Jing in his struggle to refuse Russian demands. 413 The following is the French text, which is considered as the standard in the interpretation of the Convention, China, No. 2, 1904, No. 54, Enclosure Sa Majeste l'Empereur et Autocrate de toutes les Russies et Sa Majeste l'Empereur de Chine, dans le but de rétablir et de consolider les relations de bonne voisinage rompues par le soulèvement qui a eu lieu en 1900 dans le Céleste Empire, ont nommé pour leurs plénipotentiaires, à l'effet d'établir un accord sur certaines questions. Concernant la Mancouri les dits plénipotentiaires, munis de pleins pouvoirs, qui ont été trouvés suffisants, sunt convenus de stipulations suivant article 1. Sa Majeste Impériale et l'Empereur de toutes les Russies, désireux de donner un nouvel privé de son amour de la paix et de ses sentiments d'amitié envers Sa Majeste l'Empereur de Chine, malgré que soit de différents points de la Mancouri situés sur la frontière que les premières attaques contre la population paisible russe ayant de faits, consent au rétablissement de l'autorité du gouvernement chinois dans la province précitée, qui reste une partie intégrale de l'Empire de Chine et restitue au gouvernement chinois le droit d'exercer les pouvoirs gouvernementaux et administratifs, comme avant son occupation par les troupes russes. Article 2. En prenant possession de pouvoirs gouvernementaux et administratifs de la Mancouri, le gouvernement chinois confirme, aussi bien par rapport auxiliary terms que par rapport à tous les autres articles, l'engagement d'observer strictement les stipulations du contract conclu avec la Banque Russo-Chinoise le 27 août, 1896, et assume, conformément à l'article 5 du dit contrat, l'obligation de protéger par tous les moyens le chemin de fer et son personnel, et oblige également de sauvegarder la sécurité en Mancouri de tous les sujets russes en général qui s'y trouvent et de enterprises fonds par yux. Le gouvernement russe, en vue de cette obligation assumée par le gouvernement de Sa Majeste l'Empereur de Chine, consent de son côté dans le n'y aura pas de troubles, et si la manière d'agir de autres puissances n'y mettra pas obstacle, à retirer graduellement toutes ses troupes de la Mancouri de manière accolée, et évacuer dans les 46 mois après la signature de la convention les troupes russes de la partie sud-ouest de la province de Mukden jusqu'au fleuve Liao Ho, en remettant les chemins de fer à la Chine, b. Évacuer dans les 46 mois suivants les troupes impériales russes de la partie restante de la province de Mukden et de la province de Kirin, et c. Retirer dans les 46 mois suivants le reste de troupes impériales russes qui se trouvent dans la province de Heilongjiang. Article 3. En vue de la nécessité de conjurer à l'avenir la répétition de troubles de 1900, dans lesquels les troupes chinoises cantonnées dans les provinces limitrophes à la Russie ont pris part, le gouvernement russe et le gouvernement chinois se chargeront d'ordonner auxiliary autorités militaires russes et auxiliary jinjians de s'entendre en vue de fixer le nombre et de déterminer les lieux de cantonnement de troupes chinoises en Mancouri tant que les troupes russes n'auront pas été retirées, le gouvernement chinois s'engage en outre à ne pas former d'autres troupes en sus du nombre déterminé de cette manière par les autorités militaires russes et les jinjians, et l'équal doit être suffisant pour exterminer les brigands et pacifier le pays. Après l'évacuation complète de troupes russes, le gouvernement chinois aura le droit de procéder à l'examen du nombre de troupes se trouvant en Mancouri et sujets à être augmentés ou diminués, en informant à temps le gouvernement impérial, car il va de soi que le maintien de troupes dans la province précitée en nombre superflu mènerait inévitablement à l'augmentation de forces militaires russes dans les districts voisins, et provoquerait ainsi un accroissement de dépenses militaires. Au grand désavantage de deux États. Pour le service de police et le maintien de l'ordre intérieur dans cette région, en dehors du territoire cédé à la Société du chemin de fer chinois de l'Est, il se reforme, auprès de gouvernements locaux, Jinjians, un gendarmerie chinoise apide et à cheval composé exclusivement de sujets de sa majesté l'empereur de Chine. Article 4. Le gouvernement russe consent à restituer à leurs propriétaires les lignes fers de Shanghai Quanyinkao Sinmenting, occupés et protégés par les troupes russes depuis la fin du mois de septembre, 1900. En vue de cela, le gouvernement de sa majesté l'empereur de Chine s'engage 1. Que dans le cas où il serait nécessaire d'assurer la sécurité de lignes fers précises, le gouvernement chinois s'encarguera lui-même et en invitera aucune autre puissance à entreprendre ou à participer à la défense, construction, ou exploitation de ces lignes, et ne permettra pas auxiliary puissances étrangères d'occuper le territoire restitué par la Russie. Tout que les lignes fers susmentionnées seront activées et exploitées sur les bases précises tant de l'arrangement entre la Russie et l'Angleterre en date du 16 avril, 1899, que du contrat conclu le 28 septembre, 1898, avec une compagnie particulière relativement à un emprunt pour la construction de lignes précises, et, en outre, en observant les obligations assumes par cette compagnie, c'est-à-dire, de ne pas prendre possession de la ligne Shanghai Quanyinkao Sinmenting ni d'en disposer de quelque façon que ce soit. 3 KSIPAR la suite il sera procède à la continuation de lignes fers dans le sud de la Mandchourie ou à la construction d'embranchements vers els, aussi bien que la construction d'un pont à Yinkao ou au transfert du terminus du chemin de fer de Shanghai Quan qui s'y trouve, ce sera fait après une entente préalable entre les gouvernements de Russie et de Chine. 4 vu que les dépenses faites par la Russie pour le rétablissement et l'exploitation de lignes fers restituées de Shanghai Quanyinkao Sinmenting n'ont pas it comprises dans la somme totale de l'indemnité, elles lui seront remboursées par le gouvernement chinois. Les deux gouvernements s'entendront sur le montant de sommes à rembourser. Les dispositions de tous les traités antérieurs entre la Russie et la Chine, non modifiées par la presente convention, restant en pleine vigueur. La presente convention aura force légale à dater du jour de la signature de ces exemplaires par les plénipotentiaires, de l'un et de l'autre empire. L'échange de ratifications aura